and start with my hands, where my hands would feel like they just become total space. Then they would swell up as atoms or something and just expand throughout everything. And that would sink into my body, and my body would explode and become everything. And it would just get bigger and bigger.
All right, welcome to the New Age Human Podcast. I'm your host, John Astasio, and today we're talking with Jonathan Beaudette, who is a composer, artist, producer, who creates music that charges the soul. So it's interesting because we first start talking about his awakening from the Matrix experience, like red pill style, and then it just takes a sharp turn into a cluster of fascinating experiences he had with a shaman that his father introduced him to. But he actually considers this person more of like a wizard, just based off of the amazing experiences he had. We're talking about like Lord of the Rings style stuff. So before we begin, all I ask is if you want to support the show, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts if you're listening from there, and join the newsletter so you can get updates on future episodes, the future of the show, and future projects that you can join in on and benefit from. So without further ado, let's get to the show. We are good. There's no countdown. Awesome. All right. So Jonathan, thanks for coming on the show. I'm excited. How's it going, man?
It's going really good. It's going great. I had a massive storm here in California. It's awesome.
Yeah, you were just saying that you had to go over this mountain to get to your studio, and
Yeah.
then the rain is falling from the sky. I think at the time of recording, 18 hours straight, and you're in California, right?
Yeah. Surprisingly, though, the amount of rain coming down isn't as much as there has been in other storms that have happened less. So we've had more rain in more amount of a time. I only know this because the river by my place, uh, when it floods, it just gets to a certain height. It's like, wow. And it doesn't quite get there. It was pretty high, but not quite. So even though it's been raining for 18 hours, solid, like in the rain, 45 degrees because the wind's blowing. It's been crazy, but somehow it's just not as much as one other time that that's insane. That happened a lot faster. I think that's probably why, because just if it comes down really fast, really intensely, quickly, then yeah, it's going to flood extra high. But it's been still everybody's freaking out around here because it's LA. What do we do? It's raining,
Is everybody running out of their houses screaming, looking at the sky?
Yeah, exactly.
You are a composer of sorts, and your thing is music. And before we start, I have to ask, because we started with the conversation around water, what are your thoughts around water and the sound of it for relaxation? Have you ever used it? And I'm just curious about your thoughts.
Yeah, I have recordings of rain, my own recordings of rain and ocean also. And of course, a lot of streams, different types of streams, rivers, little tiny brooks, little everything from waterfalls. I just go out in nature and hike a lot, and I have a portable mic recording system, and so I capture a lot of water sounds actually.
That's, I am not surprised. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty cool. So, I like the idea that when I sent you like questions, it's funny. Before for the audience, when I have a guest on, I'm like, hey, just give me a couple of stories that we can jump into, maybe to make it interesting. And a lot of times, I'm surprised I don't get any. I say, the guest says like 2 words or completely fills in something completely unrelated. And then Jonathan here has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm like, this guy is loaded with stories. So this is gonna be interesting.
Uh-huh.
And right before I hit record, I'm like, where do you want to start? And we're like, let's just start from the beginning. So let's start from the beginning because I feel like what you want to share. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah. So this is a spiritual based podcast, right? So,
Yes.
um, I kind of grew up what I call it in the Muggle world. That's a Harry Potter reference. The Muggles, for these, I mean, who doesn't know about Harry Potter? But in case you don't, Muggles are the regular non-wizard, non-magic people. And they don't even know the wizard world exists. Okay. So I lived in that world, otherwise known as the Matrix, grew up there and everything was good. My dad, when I was in high school, my dad started to kind of introduce me to affirmations or mind over matter type of stuff, that you could use your mind to change things about
I'm actually
yourself.
surprised that your father introduced this to you because
Yeah.
usually that world, the mother, at least in my experience. But go ahead. I just want to
Okay.
throw that in there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, all my spiritual guide really was my dad for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah. Not my mom. So yeah, he was just sort of learning about it himself. So he was just sharing with me and I kind of took to it. So, um, when I was a really, really skinny kid in high school and I wanted to be in the Air Force. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. So I decided to join the Air Force, but I was way too, I was like 20 pounds underweight
Wow.
for their minimum, you know. So, and
Wait,
this is
you
the
you were
mid
Captain
80s.
America.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, so this is the mid 80s and there was not like the protein, drinks of today that taste good. And everyone's got these amazing formulas and, pea protein, whey protein, all kinds of hemp protein or whatever. It's just every kind of cricket protein. There's all kinds of protein now. So no, back then it was just horrible tasting. So, but I guzzled it down and I gained 20 pounds so I could get in and do my thing. And then I lost it all within the first couple days because it wasn't muscle. It was just, water weight really. And they just, sweat you to death in basic training. So, but anyway, I grew up in the muggle world and everything seemed normal other than just some, uh, affirmation of mind over matter type stuff, which I was playing with. And one of the things was that I wanted to be 150 pounds, which is what my minimum was by a certain date so I could get into the Air Force. And every night I go to sleep and I just imagine myself being bigger. And my mantra was, I weigh 150 pounds, I weigh 150 pounds, I weigh 150 pounds. And it was just constant. So for what it's worth, I achieved that goal. That's not the particular interesting story about it, but it was just my introduction to I'm more than my body and my mind has the power to do all kinds of things. So
Interesting.
there's some other experiences I had in the Air Force that I used that technique, but um, the biggest thing was when I was living in Japan. I was stationed in Japan. Was my first place, Yokota Air Base, and I was living there. And I think it was my 20th birthday. My dad's girlfriend, who was really the impetus for all his spiritual growth, his new girlfriend at the time, she sent me Dan Millman's Way of the Peaceful Warrior. It's a
Mm.
classic book. Um, and I read that book and something happened to me. It woke me up. It's, words have energy. The book, the consciousness, the overall consciousness, and whatever code sort of that it had energetically built into it, that it hit me and it just sort of woke me up. And it was my red pill moment where not this new term of red pill, it has some sort of new thing with the Zoomers or the Zoomers, the Gen Z has a I think it means slightly a little different thing, but so I'm talking classic Matrix. Yeah. Classic Matrix. Yeah. You come out of what you thought reality was. Yeah. And I was different. I was a very different person. And at that time I was reading stuff about, extraterrestrials and quantum physics and kind of really stretching myself a little bit with that already. But that book changed me and all my friends knew it. They're like, what happened to you? You're different. What's going on? And I can't discuss it. I tried. I thought it was really cool. Like everybody else would be into it. And they're like, what are you talking about? You know? So that was a huge thing. And then I realized, oh, I don't want to be a fighter pilot. I'm a musician. My whole life trajectory changed. I
Wow.
didn't fit into the military. This isn't my thing. Everything changed.
All from that one
And
book.
yeah, one book. And I read that book over and over and over. I transcribed the book. I was
Oh,
so into it. I wrote down all the cool lines and the cool things, and I had a whole notebook of the book. I was obsessed. I was 20, and I was just like, it just woke me up. I was not the same person.
Wow.
So that was a pretty, and I've heard a couple other people have had that type of awakening type of thing. But it's also pretty common that people have, um, there's a health issue, there's a financial struggle, there's a life does something to you that wakes you up. There's a big death or something. There's a loss of some kind, relationship thing, and it kind of wakes people up, and they start having difficulty. So they start searching for answers, and so they go, "Oh, I'll try the meditation, or I'll try this self-help book, whatever it might be." I'll look at Joe Dispenza, or I'll look at, uh, you know, Louise Hay or somebody, they're going to, Marianne Williamson, they're going to gravitate. Something's going to invite them to kind of open up to a little bit of a bigger picture. So the process is often gradual, but mine was a snap. It was just like, bam. And oh, where am I? What am I doing? So I had to fulfill my tour in the Air Force. You have a contract, and I was able to get out 4 months early, but that was only because the job I had, they had plenty of people, and they didn't need me. So, and the
Oh, I
military
see.
does that. If the military does that, they're like, there'll be windows where if your particular job has a lot of personnel and you don't want to be in it, they'll go, okay, cool, no sweat.
First of all, that's awesome. I mean, to your point, yes, everybody has their own journey as far as waking up, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's funny how using the term "waking up" means someone's sleeping. Then who's sleeping? And then you
Uh-huh.
start thinking, "Am I sleeping?" And they're like, "No, I'm not, because I'm listening to this." So it's like it puts the mind in a frenzy. Just that term. So just when you talk about those subjects, it's like waking people up, and the matrix pill, right? The red pill is just being slowly passed out. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm actually curious, in when you were in the military, in the Air Force, and you were doing your thing. What was it like talking to the guys? Like, what kind of responses did you get from other guys there when you tried to talk to them? I'm actually pretty curious.
It's difficult to remember. It was a long time ago, but it was generally like, whatever, man. What are you talking about? It was just sort of like, what? What are you doing?
Wow.
It's like
So
out of nowhere. You just start talking about all this Zen kind of language and stuff. And you're like, it was just sort of, they weren't then dismiss me because we've been friends for a long time. You tend to work with the same guys. Your tour is 2 years, so you'll probably be with the same guys for 2 years. So we were pretty good friends, and everyone's just like, all right, Beaudette. And everyone calls you by your last name generally too. So you say, okay, Beaudette, cool.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So one of the other questions that you or stories that
Yeah.
I'm just dying to get into is the time you were learning from a shaman slash wizard type for
Oh
over
yeah.
a decade. What? How did
Yeah.
that happen?
Yeah. Well, again, from my dad, actually.
He's the wizard.
No, no, he led me to the guy. But yeah, so let's see, where am I? So I was Air Force. I got out. I got a massage therapy license while I was doing massage. I was doing music. So it was just a way for me to help people and have I can make my own hours and do my thing, and still do music. Um, but during that time, I was living in Durango, Colorado, and my dad was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is about 3, 4 hours from each other through the mountains. And so my dad's when they said I've been working with this guy, we do these medicine journeys. And at the time, that was a blend of what people know as ayahuasca now and um, mushrooms. So that was kind of what he's not around anymore, in case anybody's wondering. Brooks was his name. And
Mm.
so my dad introduced me to him, and he goes, we should try out one of these things. I was like, okay. So I did my first one with him, and it was a group one with my dad was there and some small people like not small people, but a small amount of people. They were regular sized humans. Some were shorter than others, but um,
No Oompa Loompas. Got it.
that's right. And so, yeah, I did. I had my first true sort of shamanic journey medicine experience, and it wasn't really my thing. I didn't gravitate to it like, oh, this is so wild, but it was very interesting. And I had an experience during that I used to have as a kid all the time, and I had forgotten that I used to have that as a kid. But as a kid, I would have these dreams, and sometimes I'd be awake, sometimes I'd be in a dream state. But the dream thing, it was weird. It was like my hands, it always had to do with my hands, and my hands would, and then it would enter my body. But it'd start with my hands, where my hands would feel like they just become total space, and that then they would swell up as atoms or something and just expand throughout everything. And that would sink into my body, and my body would explode and become everything. And I would just get bigger and bigger. When I was a kid, and this would happen a lot of times when I was sleeping. And
Oh,
suddenly
this is
I couldn't feel my body,
so those
right?
were normal dreams that you had
Those
before
are
the ayahuasca
normal.
trip.
Yeah, those are normal
Wow.
things when I was a kid. But when I had that ayahuasca journey, that's it happened again in the journey. And I was like, oh, I used to do this all the time when I was a kid. So that was kind of wild that I could do that. And then for, man, several months after, I could initiate that thing at will, that feeling. And all I had to do was just sort of let my hands sort of expand. It was weird. It would feel like my hands become translucent and then get huge and fill up the universe. And then that feeling would sink into my whole body. And I could be looking at, like, I was sitting in my truck one time looking at the steering wheel, and I said, let me just try it. I wasn't driving, but I was just sitting there, and it started to happen. And I was like, wow. And I could use my eyes. I could see the steering wheel, but I felt like I was everything. And
Wow.
it was not a subtle thing. Like, oh, I'm kind of sensing no, this was just everything shifts. And so it trickled away. But that my first journey experience was pretty wild like that. And then I started to just work with Brooks, but Brooks was not a normal dude. In LA, you go around every corner and there's a urban shaman somewhere. You know, everybody's a shaman healer. And it's just like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. This guy, and he was a white dude. He had a really unique background, but some people are just born with certain types of abilities.
Mm.
And he did end up traveling around the world and studying with a lot of different gurus and other shamans and stuff. Um, but he was already well past normal sort of abilities of being able to perceive through anything. And his ability to heal and know things was, that's why I say he's like more like a wizard, because people have this idea of what a shaman is. And he wasn't traditional in any kind of a native type of experience. It was really something he evolved into what he called God shaman, um, okay, so shamanism we just described in general, just generalizing, is one's own ability to understand the nature of reality and then go into a place and change whatever that is. That could be a person, could be an event, could be a general consciousness of a collective consciousness. It's the ability to go inside someplace and transform it into whatever you want. So, but the problem with that is that what Brooks discovered is that that style of shamanism is you end up losing a part of yourself, a little bit. Part of
Interesting.
yourself is lost inside of that. And you're only as effective as you are capable. Now, what he discovered, partly because of his wife, actually, was God, what he called God shaman, which God is just used in a very broad sense of ultimate love and creation and presence, and there's no affiliation of any religion. So, if you become present and enter into a place where quote God isn't, you can allow God to be there by your own presence, and as you are present there, it transforms as from a God point of view, So if God has created us whole, the universe, spirit, the Tao, the force, whatever you want to call it, has created us whole, eternal, perfect, that our consciousness continues after this body physical experience, then that part is the part that you can bring into the human experience. And by his ability was to focus that energy into one particular spot. And because he's not doing anything but allowing God to do it, it just heals naturally. And there's no part of you in it. And it can heal beyond what you could ever think of was possible because it's not you that's doing it, it's happening through you. It's a
Mm.
very, very different thing and way more powerful, actually. So, um, yeah, I mean, he stopped doing the medicine journeys after a while because he found people could be more effective without them, actually. It's a great stepping stone for people to a certain stage, but it's actually a limitation after a while, and it'll hold you back from even going way further than you can ever go.
Are you able to talk a little bit further into that part? Because I think that's huge. I know that
Yeah.
it's a big craze, and whenever I mention ayahuasca, people are like, "Oh, you got to do it," and
Yeah.
it becomes this big thing. And it's very interesting that you bring that up. Yeah, if you can dive deeper into that, I think a lot of people appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was never really into the journey thing, first of all. I found it useful, but it wasn't like some other people I knew that were doing them once or twice a week. And there's people
Oh,
that are like this. Like,
yes.
you know, this is not just a couple of people that I knew. It's a quite a big thing. And it's addicting. And it's like you have to be honest with yourself. It's a drug addiction. Now,
Mm.
it is a natural drugs. You know, they're natural substances come out of the earth. Great. But if you can't stop something, that's the definition of an addiction. If you can't make a choice to stop, then that you're addicted. Doesn't matter what it is.
Mm.
So, okay, so let's see. So I was never really that into it. And I always felt like that he would move out of that himself. And he ended up doing that because I could tell like that it's useful for me in some ways and it helps me heal some things. But, and that's the other thing, by the way, is that when he would take you through a journey, he was not on substance also. He didn't need to be. I'm telling you, this guy, he was like a Yoda. This is why I call him a wizard. He's more like
Wow.
a Gandalf from Lord of the Rings or something. He truly was somebody who had extrasensory abilities. That doesn't make he's this amazing human being. He's a person and he has childhood wounds and he had issues, but outside of that, his ability to hold space for your unique divine self, to be present as your body and what it would heal psychically, psychologically, physically, emotionally, it was profound what could happen
Wait,
without therapy, without talking things through and stuff. You just shift. Now
did
you're
he?
just different.
So he used to use ayahuasca as a catalyst to get you to the space where he can work with you, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you said he stopped that. What did he use after that as a catalyst?
Nothing.
Was it
Yeah.
basically meditation?
Yeah. No, he just taught people how to do it without doing it. So I can show you some of the things that he was doing now,
Let's do it.
but yeah, but let me get through some of the journey stuff is that he he found it was not as useful with it because it's like anything else. It's great for a while. If you need a crutch, awesome. But if you don't work to um, do supplements, do physical therapy to help your leg heal, and you just want to stay with the cast and the crutch, that's cool. It's your life. Do whatever you want. But these things are crutches
Mm.
and they're way better used every couple years. Every 5 years, you feel like, oh, something needs to, let me just make sure that, cool, whatever. But it's just every week thing or every month, it's just like, come on. So, so this is really simple. We are not separate from the source. We just are not. We look at our bodies and we look at everybody else's bodies and physical reality. We can say, yes, That's not true. I'm separate. Clearly, you and I are separate. We are not one, clearly. But that's a part of the spiritual path, is to start to learn to see beyond the physical senses and to experience life from a more whole experience. We have more senses than just our eyeballs and ears and taste and touch and all that. Everybody knows about the, spiritual way, about the third eye and sort of the psychic sort of senses. But there's more than that even. And anybody can do this right now. It's really, really simple. So there is breath work, by the way, too. Breath work you can do. You can get yourself into really elevated states. That's very similar to the medicine journey stuff. But so all you have to do, and people can close their eyes or not, you don't even have to do it, but just let yourself be still for a moment and just be with yourself. Just be. If you just let yourself be, you don't have to do anything or try to stop thinking or anything. There's nothing to actually do except to just let yourself exist for a moment. And this is not what he would do, but I'm just sort of setting it up because this is a podcast and people are listening and they're doing stuff. If you were sitting with him, none of this would be necessary because you're already present in a room with a sort of intent. So all you have to do is make a statement that's based on I am. Because I am is eternal. You are the I am. You are the I. There is only the I part. The am helps us understand the I, but it's really just about the I. So if you can say out loud, and it helps to say it out loud because it affects your body, and we're used to speaking. So there's a way that it affects your body, and you tend to believe it a little more too if you can say it out loud. But you can say it to yourself if you want. And also, you can get beyond the point where you have to even say the word. Just the awareness of it will make it happen. But for now, so the words are, I am only who I am. I am only who I am as this body and nothing else. So, John, repeat after me. I'm going to say it, and then you repeat after me, and then we'll just let it happen. And as soon as we have evoked it, it just happens. That's how simple it is.
Wow.
So, I am only who I am as my body and nothing else. Go ahead.
I am only who I am as my body and nothing else.
And then just sit. And allow the feeling to happen. It's a feeling.
That statement forces me to be extremely present because you're living each word, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to question the words, but when you say that statement, I am, that's a very as a matter of fact statement. And I can see how that can put someone into a present moment and slip into that state a lot easier. I can also see that this shaman, this God shaman, when you get to a high level of consciousness, right, you affect the area around you and much of the world around you based off of just how consciously aware and, I don't want to say evolved, but just expanded you are, let's just say.
Exactly.
And it makes perfect sense where something as simple as that, if you're in that space yourself, anybody that's within the vicinity of you is going to easily slip into that, I'm sure.
Yes,
and
exactly.
then it also makes sense how he himself said, yes, we could do the medicine, but the medicine is like it's like a it pulls the curtain so they can see the actual real world,
Hmm.
and then that experience of seeing the outside world, the real world, the veil of the matrix will change you because of understanding and what you see. But I can also see him saying that, you know, why not work to keep the window open without needing to take medicine? And
Hmm.
he's seeing that as a crutch where you would assume that you need the medicine to be able to open the curtain, when the reality is all these stimulants and hallucinogens are just, I just had a conversation with someone the other day where it's a button, it's a trigger for your body to do what it already is capable of doing. It's just an
Yeah,
activator of sorts.
exactly.
And so he's like, I'm pretty sure he said or was thinking just that, where people are glorifying, right? They're putting the medicine on a pedestal.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Yeah,
Okay, so I'm on the
yeah.
same page.
The
Yeah, it makes
medicine
complete
becomes your
sense.
God instead of you recognizing that you are God.
Mm-hmm.
There is no separation. There is, I use the word God, I can use the word source. The source of you is not even further from you than your own breath. It's so you. And as you just take a moment to go, I am only who I am as my body. You can even say, I am only what I am as my body. And then you can even focus it even more. I am only what I am and who I am as my body, especially in relationship to, and then pick a spot where you struggle. Could be in my
Mm-hmm.
relationship with this person, could be in relationship to my sexuality, could be in relationship to the the tightness in my neck. It could be whatever. Just let it focus it there and then just let who you are be. And things will heal and shift. You have to, but you can't just don't try to help it. Don't try to imagine anything. Don't try to help it. Like, what are you're gonna help the universe? You're gonna help you're gonna help the divine perfect nature of you do something? You, the ego? What? No, you just stay out of the way. And you can walk through your day with this feeling that I am only who I am, and everybody I see is the same thing also.
Mm.
Right? It's
What I
just
want to
yeah.
ask you is, and you brought up a good point. Don't get in the way of the source doing its thing, because you're
Yeah.
working with your ego, your limited ego,
Yeah.
and that's completely opposite from all the just growing up in the Western world. um,
Yeah.
and to that point and that concept, do you have a story you're willing to share where you did let source take over and you let the ego go so that you can heal a wound of sorts, whether it be emotional, relationship? I'm very curious because it does feel like you're speaking from experience.
Hmm. Yeah. I I don't know, thousands and thousands
Maybe a wacky, crazy one.
of times.
Or very like just it caught you off guard and it was very
I can tell
impactful
you
for
one
you.
that's coming to me now that was really, really surprising. So when I was in a class with him, Brooks, he was teaching, and there was a girl that I was friends with, but also really, really, really liked. And it wasn't just I liked her. It was like when I met her, something went into my body and my heart exploded. It was not a normal thing. And I'm not talking like I'm talking earlier about my hands and now this whole experience just now. This is not, I'm not saying this kind of stuff happens to me all the time. I'm just telling you a couple times I've had some really interesting experiences. I don't go walking every week. Oh, there's a new thing I just experienced. No,
Oh, his heart exploded. You hear that?
yeah, no, it was something went inside me and I was really heartbroken at the time too. And it just changed me. So, and I've known her for a long time. We were getting to know each other and being friends and stuff, and it was all fine. But she was also coming out of something. And so there was that guy, which he sent her flowers to the class. It was Valentine's Day. He sent her flowers to the class, and somebody knocks on the
Brooks.
door. Click, click, click. No, this girl's ex guy sent flowers to our class. Somebody knocks on the door, and Brooks is like, "What the hell?" And he opens the door. There's flowers there. He's like, "What?" And anyway, so he gives the flowers to her, and I know where they came from, and it just my heart just collapsed. It would have been fine in any other circumstance, but we're there in a spiritual class. We're doing deep work. It's a very vulnerable kind of openness that you get to. And then to have that come into the class, and like, dude, why are you doing it to the class? You know where she lives. Her daughter calls you, her daughter calls you dad. It's not like you don't have a connection. Just, why are you sending flowers to the class? I knew it was a whole other thing. So I just went into a fury that I had never experienced, because I felt it was a poke. Like, he knew about me, and there was a thing. So it just felt like it was a poke. And I also got mad at Brooks because he called Brooks and asked for the address, and Brooks said, "Sure, here's your address." So I was like, "Brooks, come on, wake up, man. Like, what are you doing?" So the point is, I was in this infuriated state, and I actually got up and left the class and went down. This is in Venice Beach. I just went for a walk on the beach, and a good friend of mine saw what had happened, and she knew what was going on. So she followed me out. And it was a good thing too, because it really, really hit a place of darkness that I didn't know I had in me. And I was really like, it was really bad. So she got me to go back to the class after about half an hour of walking, talking it out. I go back in, and I sat in her spot, so I wasn't sitting next to the girl. And Brooks, he didn't know specifically what was going on, but he could feel like what was going on. And so this is like midday. Within a few hours, I could feel Brooks working on me. As he's doing the class, I could feel him working on me,
Wow.
because I know what it felt like. And at the end of the class, my heart was so open. I was completely pure. I was talking to her. I was talking to everybody else, as if there was never an issue. It was gone, and it never came back. It was just gone. And to have that to go from such an intensely dark place that I didn't even know I had in me, have that arise, and then have complete peace go. And so, in order for that to make sense to anybody, I have to explain how that worked and why that worked. And our consciousness can make a choice to connect to the shadow aspect. It can make a choice to connect to the ego aspect. It can make a choice to connect to any number of wounds. It can make a choice to connect to the higher self. You can make a choice. Now, when you're overwhelmed with emotion, making that choice is almost impossible, if not impossible, until you get through the emotion enough that you can start to choose your trajectory again. Unless you're having to work with a master like that guy, in which case he can just sit there and hold space. Again, he's not doing anything. He holds space for your divine truth to be the dominant point of your conscious awareness. So all he did was allow that to be the truth. He wasn't trying to clear out wounds or darkness, because then you're focusing on what isn't real.
Mm-mm.
He was just focused on me so intensely, so focused, so fiercely about my truth, which is, I am not wounded. I'm not a wounded child. There is no one to let go of. There is no one to grab onto. There is none of this. I am just a whole, perfect, beautiful being. And he held space for that. And me, being somebody who's willing to not feel like shit, that was my choice. I'm willing to let go and feel better. So that allowed, I could have fumed. He could have done that all day. Nothing would have happened. I could have just been holding on to it. But having done so much work, I just knew I feel bad. This is not what I want to feel.
Hmm.
And so that was my part. And then he did his part and it was gone. And the reason it never came back was because I I had made the choice to so identify with that truth that my heart is open and I am free. I don't need to attach to anybody. Why am I threatened by somebody's flowers? If this connection with this person is really right, and said to me once was when a relationship is really right, it's really hard to mess it up.
Interesting.
And I have experienced that for sure with the person I'm with now. You know, somebody for 14 years, I've made 2% mistakes with some women and they just are gone, you know, but I can make huge, mistakes with just my own shadow coming up and saying stuff or acting a certain way or whatever. And the person's still there and I'm still there with her. It's like if it goes both ways. And so the shift that I made in that moment was because one, I chose it, and two, he was holding space as his divine ability could to imprint upon me the truth of who I am
Hmm.
and nothing else at all. Nothing else ever got to exist. And it solidified it. And that was just that.
Wow.
So I experienced that type of thing all the time with him. And I saw him do it to other people. My girlfriend at the time, I lived with him at a retreat center in Ojai. He had a retreat center and it was a little tiny canyon that had a river running through it. And it was an old Shumash healing ground, had a hot spring.
Wow.
And the
What a spot.
Shumash tribe, when they learned that, because it was a county park for a long time, the county had it. It was had an Olympic-sized swimming pool. It was sort of a brothel. It was kind of this rundown county park thing. And he bought it when the county was getting rid of it. They didn't know what to do with it, so he bought it and created a retreat center. But when he did that, the Shumash elders came and they gave him an Indian name, which was something like Shulush Kunuk, which meant young buck. And to him, to them, he was a young buck.
That's
But
great.
they said that Matilaha, that was the name of the canyon, Matilaha had been returned to the people
Wow.
because of who he was. And they could feel his spiritual presence and his intent and his his nature. And they sensed it and they came to the property to give him their blessing of being a steward for Matilha.
Right. They didn't get any social media alert because he took a selfie at the place. Check this out. I just bought this.
Right.
Right. And they're like, oh,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
check him out. Let's give him, No,
Yeah.
they sensed it in the field, which is awesome. I
Yeah.
love that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's a true story. I grew up watching movies being like my whole body would wake up, full body wake up when I would see that happen in movies. I'm like, that's got to be real. And it's very
Yeah.
pleasing to me to hear that happening in real life in a true, genuine story that people have that connection and will show up and give you a
Yeah.
name and be appreciative of what you're doing. So I think
Yeah.
that's really cool. That's
Well,
awesome.
let me tell you one more experience that I had with my girlfriend at the time who was living with me at that retreat center. And she had some food poisoning and was just throwing up crazy. And she had um, a hernia in the stomach area. I forgot what that's called. But and so
That's
with all the vomiting,
intense.
she was afraid she was going to herniate, which was bringing her more into fear. And she's curled up on the floor and she's just freaking out and hyperventilating and I called Brooks. I said, Brooks, she come over. So he walks in, he goes, oh, so it looks like you're having a hard time. He's very casual about it. He goes, all right, so just let yourself relax. And then he would start to roll his head, close his eyes and he start to roll his head and did real slow head movement, turning like that. And as soon as he did that, her muscles relax and within a few minutes, her body's completely straightened out. She's breathing normally. and she's at peace. And then worked with her about 10 more minutes. He goes, okay, you're good now. So just, try to relax and walked away. She went from a complete hysterical, emotional, physically gut wrenching kind of experience to peace within just a few minutes. You're like,
It's
what? And I saw this kind of thing happen all the time, you know?
that's that's awesome. And it sounds like he definitely, all right, he's doing some other stuff now because he's tapping into a different level, not even touching someone, not even
Right.
prompting someone.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a
I
special
know.
wand, right? He's not
There's no
doing,
staff. I know. Yeah.
right?
He's not saying anything. He's not saying, he's like,
right?
you
He's
shall
not
not
putting on,
pass. He's not doing anything.
right? There's not like this weird glow that happens. He's just like
Yeah.
rolling his neck. For all we know, he probably had a kink in his neck, and then oh, that's amazing. No,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just being funny with it, but I'm pretty
Sure.
sure it does sound like he has at that level where he's at, he can feel what the person's feeling and and interact with the energy on a deeper level and just have that have that done, finished, cleared.
Yeah.
And to what you just said earlier, he's bringing
Yeah.
in a higher source that's not himself, which is huge. So he's doing a lot of great stuff. This guy is like he's the real thing, man. And
Yeah.
he's
That's what I said. That's why I said he was not a normal. He had some abilities that were definitely out of this
this guy's
world.
the
Yeah.
real deal.
Yeah.
I did so going back into ayahuasca and that being more of a ramp, so to
Yeah.
speak,
Right.
into what you want to accomplish. Um, how do you tie that into what you're doing now and what made you have all these experiences, these amazing experiences. You learned a lot. You're definitely not a muggle in your own right. You're definitely part
Right.
of the
Right.
the you know the in and out of the matrix to help people out type of thing.
Yeah.
What got you into doing what you're doing now? I know it's been we've been talking for a bit. Maybe briefly give people an idea of like why, out of all these experiences, the trajectory going to what you're doing now. I'm very curious. Why?
Yeah. Well, music. I started playing music as a kid here and there, learning Star Wars by ear on the piano, and just so music was always a big part of my life. And then when I was in the Air Force, I dove into rock guitar pretty heavy and started doing that. And then I realized I was a musician, and so the whole thing was always a part of my soul, my purpose, my path. And so creating cinematic meditation music. A big People ask me what kind of music do you do? Well, as an artist, I'm not a typical kind of artist. So I do artist music, and this is my songs or whatever. And as a composer, I just love cinematic music. So that is what I do. I make cinematic style music, music that evokes images and feelings. It takes you to a place as soon as you start to listen, it just takes you somewhere. All music will open up a sort of a realm of the energy that it contains. If I play Metallica right now, it's going to open up a certain feeling in a certain type of energy. If I do the same thing with Mozart, it's different totally, but it still does the same thing. It opens up a certain vibe and feeling and energy. So for me, it's the inner journey. The inner journey has been a big part of my life ever since I met Brooks. And even before I had shamanic books. I was learning how to go inside and kind of do stuff. And so the inner journey and using music, Brooks was amazing. He would use music too during his journeys when he was doing that. And he just always seemed to pick the right thing. And you just go into this place in yourself. It was pretty profound. So that Brooks actually taught me how to hear music differently. There's just so much I got from that. So between music and the inner journey, that's what I do. So whether I'm writing music for a movie or I'm writing cinematic meditation music for people to assist, which is how I met you, people who do inner guidance for meditation or inner journeys, they want to use music for that. I create music that has not only just the creates a cinematic space or a place where you can have imagery and feelings and sort of transgress into childhood stuff or open to your inner hero or whatever it is you want to do. It's the music that I write comes from being inside of that vibe, right? So if I write music for a movie, you can write music and here's the scene and I'm writing music for the scene and the music is being informed by the film. The film's telling me kind of what to do. Or you can write from inside, shamanically, sort of inside the story. You go into the essence, to the energy of the film, to the energy of the project, to the energy of the person, to the whatever. You just go into that space and then compose from inside of it. Rather than writing music to describe a space, you compose from inside of it. And that's what I do. Everything I write is like that. So to me, what I do is a little bit different rather than just some cinematic music. It may not be, it may just be cinematic. It may just still evoke a space and a feeling and an energy for somebody to go somewhere within themselves. But I'm just describing what I do. And I haven't heard anybody else describe that. Although I'm sure there are composers and musicians and artists that do that without being able to articulate it necessarily. But there's definitely, I believe everybody can feel the difference between music that comes from some place because you're inside of a world, you're being a vessel for something larger than you, versus music that is just composed, that's really well done. I know composers, exceptional composers, but they're never going to write anything that makes anybody feel. They're never going to feel the fire in their body. They're never going to feel the tears. It's not going to evoke that, but it's amazingly well done music, but it's not going to take you there. And there's other people who write something way more simple than that, and you just go into this emotional place, it's just powerful. So that was always
Wow.
my goal. When I was in the Air Force, I was like, I don't want to be a great musician, virtuoso, player, I just want to be able to write really well, make people feel something. So that's what I strive for.
Wow.
And all my work and my inner work and journey and shamanic stuff and Brooks and all the training in the world and everything I've ever done has made me who I am today. And I'm all about the inner journey path. I think it's a really valuable path for people to take, and making music that helps them, assist them into that is it feels like my path. And also I do help meditation facilitators do a good meditation. I'm kind of a voice coach in a sense, a voice producer. And I
That
help a
you
lot of people
are.
do that. And so that, again, that helps people with their inner journey, being the best person to guide somebody, or how do I say it? Guiding somebody in the way that is most effective and using your voice in a way that is most effective to get the optimal result is great. It can be done without that. I've listened to really bad meditations and gotten something out of it. Uh, but, people, people I mean, these are famous people. I could name the names, but I don't want to put
Ooh.
them down. But it's like, if here's some advice. If you're going to guide somebody through something and you guide them to a world and there's a master and this master comes up to tell you something, don't suggest ideas of what they might tell you. Just leave it open. Don't be like, they might offer you a flower. They might offer you don't
Well,
shut up. What are you
that's the
doing?
ego, right? That, like,
Yeah.
just like what you were saying, the ego
Yeah.
coming in and like, let me just kind of like, no, just let it be interesting.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that what you're doing comes after those experiences with Brooke, with um, the going beyond medicinal experiences, and
Yeah.
it will definitely and has already changed the way you create music. Music is amazing. um, I use it. With
Yeah.
my
Thank you.
studies, right? And yeah, yeah, for sure. So a lot of really cool stories. I appreciate you, man. Is
Yeah. Sure.
let's say anybody is like, wow, you know what? I want to know more about this guy. I want to get in touch with him. I want to know, like, how do I find his music and whatnot? How do people reach you?
Yeah. Well, many places. I am on most social media. I'm actually on all social media, but Instagram is the one I tend to hang out at most.
Okay.
That's just Jonathan Beaudette, JonathanBeaudette. That's also jonathanbeaudette.com. And Cinematic Meditation Music is a licensing platform. You may not need that, but you can contact me through that website also. It's kind of easy to remember and spell, cinematicmeditationmusic.com. And yeah, I don't know, reach out if you got something to share or ask. I'm open. So
Sounds cool, man.
yeah.
Thanks again for coming on the show.
Hey, I
I
appreciate
enjoyed
you.
it.
This has been fun. The thing with my experience with Brooks is that and his wife Allison, who's still doing work today, and she's amazing. As much as Brooks was like the sky and the father and the energy, she is the earth, the mother, the feminine, and just as divine, but in a human way.
Hmm.
And that was really effective for my healing and stuff also. So it wasn't just Brooks. They were a pretty powerful duo. But my time with Brooks and that whole experience was, how do I share everything I gained with people? Because there's some really unique stuff. And I hope that maybe some of these stories help people kind of realize what's possible for you. He may not be around here anymore, but there's other people. All healing is possible in every way, the psyche, body, and everywhere. So I just want to encourage people to know that, know that. And I hope that what I did was at least helpful for anybody.
For sure,
Uh,
man.
yeah, to feel better and, walk down the path
Cool,
with
man.
an open heart. It's what we're here for.
That's I really feel that
Yeah.
the message was brought across. I was there when you were describing it. I was there. So I feel like when I share the story of our conversation, I'm gonna be like, yeah, and my my mind is gonna fill in the gaps of not being there.
Uh-huh.
I'm pretty sure there's gonna be some trippy dreams after this episode for anybody listening.
Oh yeah, one more thing. I did audios with Brooks, by the way.
Mm.
We did some audios, guided inner journeys, and I don't know if they're still out there, but I'm going to release the first one. It's going to be on YouTube and other streaming services. It'll be there in March. Um, it was called Who I Am, appropriately enough, for the work that he was doing at the time, but I don't know if that's what I'm going to call it. But reach out to me if that's interesting, or reach out to John here, and definitely letting John know about it as it comes up. So,
Awesome, man.
but so people, there's a way to have an experience of Brooks somewhat.
That's so cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
keep me posted on that for
All
sure,
right.
man. All right, thanks for coming on, man.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. It's been awesome. It's been really fun.